Darn it! Oh, ow! Blood!
It certainly is.
Oh, come back!
The golden age of Hollywood was dazzling with stars who seemed to have it all: fame, fortune, and adulation. But many iconic figures faced personal struggles that led to financial ruin. This exploration highlights the poignant stories of legends such as Judy Garland and Marie Prevost, whose lives ended in poverty despite their immense talent. These stories are a sobering reminder of the fleeting nature of success and the hidden costs of fame.
As a matter of fact, I used to be a picture director.
Why, you poor kid.
Don't get emotional. I'll be all right.
Marie Prevost. Marie Prevost epitomized the glamour of Hollywood's silent era, captivating audiences in the 1920s with roles in films such as The Marriage Circle and Kiss Me Again. However, the arrival of sound in the cinema was unkind to many silent stars, including Prevost. Her voice did not adapt well to the talkies, leading to fewer opportunities and a declining career. She struggled to adapt to the changing industry and turned to alcohol to cope with her fading fame. At the time of her death on the 21st of January, 1937, aged 38, Prevost was living in a dilapidated apartment in Los Angeles. Once a symbol of beauty and vitality, she died of acute alcoholism and malnutrition with only $300 to her name. Reports suggest that she lived in isolation during her final days, unable to secure work and struggling to afford basic necessities. A stark and heartbreaking contrast to her days of fame. Buster Keaton. One of the greats of silent film, Buster Keaton is remembered for his innovative filmmaking and physical comedy. He created cinematic masterpieces such as The General, 1926, which showcased his deadpan delivery and daring stunts. With the advent of sound film, however, Keaton's creative control diminished, and he struggled with alcoholism during a difficult personal period. The Great Depression further strained his finances, and a costly divorce settlement in 1932 depleted his fortune. Keaton's career never fully recovered, although he enjoyed a modest resurgence in the 1950s through television and supporting film roles. He died of lung cancer on the 1st of February 1966, aged 70, and lived modestly until his death. Although not destitute, Keaton's estate was not substantial, and his final years were a far cry from the monumental success of his early career. Veronica Lake. Veronica Lake, known for her iconic roles in films such as Sullivan's Travels, 1941, and her signature peekaboo hairdo, saw her fortunes quickly unravel. By the time of her death on the 7th of July, 1973, aged 50, she was penniless. Lake's downfall was caused by a mixture of alcoholism, mental health problems, and failed marriages, all of which depleted her finances. She declared bankruptcy in 1951, and by the 1960s was working as a waitress and hostess to make ends meet. In her final days, Lake suffered from hepatitis and acute kidney failure, and died alone in a Vermont hospital with little more than a small bank account and a few personal effects. Terry Thomas. English actor Terry Thomas, known for his roles in films such as Those Magnificent Men in Their Flying Machines, 1965, faced severe financial difficulties in his later years. Diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 1971, Terry Thomas's medical bills soared, and he sold his home and personal possessions to cover the costs. In 1989, friends and fellow actors organized a benefit concert to raise funds for his care, but he eventually spent his final days in a modest retirement home. Terry Thomas died on the 8th of January 1990, aged 78, having spent almost all his money on medical treatment and care. Barbara Payton. Barbara Payton was a rising starlet whose beauty and talent promised a bright future in Hollywood. In the early 1950s, she captivated audiences opposite James Cagney in Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye, 1950, heralding a career of cinematic triumphs. However, her personal life spiraled out of control and overshadowed her professional achievements. Scandals involving tumultuous relationships and a penchant for late-night parties led to drug abuse, tarnishing her reputation in a ruthlessly image-driven industry. Arrests for public drunkenness and writing bad checks became frequent, undermining her standing and draining her finances. As acting roles dried up, her decline accelerated. By her late 30s, she was living in squalor, resorting to prostitution to survive. Once lavish premieres and adoring fans were replaced by isolation and destitution. Years of heavy drinking and drug use ravaged her health, leading to liver and heart failure. On the 8th of May 1967, aged 39, Payton died in her parents' modest home with no money for a proper funeral. Her body was quietly cremated, a tragic end far from the Hollywood spotlight she had once commanded. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn, the swashbuckling star of such films as Captain Blood, 1935, and The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938, was a hugely successful actor who earned millions. But when he died on the 14th of October, 1959, aged 50, his estate was valued at just $10,000. Flynn's fortune had been eaten up by extravagant spending on yachts, several houses, and a lavish lifestyle. Legal troubles, including a highly publicized trial for statutory rape in 1943, in which he was acquitted, incurred hefty legal fees. In addition, his ex-wife, the actress Lily Damita, received a substantial settlement in their divorce, further depleting his finances. A failed film project, William Tell, collapsed after investors withdrew their funding, leaving Flynn deeply in debt. In his later years, he struggled with alcoholism and declining health, and resorted to taking roles in low-budget films to keep himself financially afloat. Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge was a luminous talent who broke barriers as the first African-American woman to be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress for Carmen Jones, 1954. Despite her groundbreaking success, she faced relentless racial discrimination that limited her roles and income. Financial mismanagement added to her difficulties. In 1963, she declared bankruptcy, owing about $150,000, mostly for unpaid taxes. Failed marriages and poor investments further eroded her finances. By her final days, Dandridge's world had shrunk considerably. On the 8th of September, 1965, aged 42, she was found dead in her modest West Hollywood apartment with just $2.14 in her bank account. She had died of an accidental overdose of antidepressants, a tragic end to a life of triumph and tribulation. Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi, forever associated with the role of Count Dracula in the 1931 film Dracula, struggled financially for much of his life. Although his role in the horror genre brought him recognition, it also typecast him and limited his career opportunities. Lugosi's addiction to morphine and methadone, initially prescribed for chronic pain, further affected his health and finances. In 1955, he was forced to file for bankruptcy, listing debts of $3,500 and assets of only $1,000. Lugosi worked in low-budget films to make ends meet, and when he died of a heart attack on the 16th of August, 1956, aged 73, he left just $1,900 in cash and a few personal effects. His funeral was paid for by Frank Sinatra, reflecting the dire state of his finances. Judy Garland. Judy Garland, the beloved star who captivated audiences as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, earned an estimated $40 million during her career, an astronomical sum at the time. But at the time of her death on the 22nd of June 1969, aged 47, she was almost penniless. Her estate was valued at a mere $40,000, while she left behind debts totaling some $4 million, including substantial unpaid taxes to the IRS. Garland's financial decline resulted from a combination of factors. She struggled with addiction to prescription drugs and alcohol, which led to exorbitant medical expenses. Mismanagement by agents and financial advisors further eroded her income, and her third husband, Sid Luft, allegedly squandered much of her wealth on failed business ventures and his own spending. In her later years, Garland resorted to performing in small venues and even fleeing from unpaid hotel bills. She spent her last days singing in a London nightclub for modest fees, desperate to pay off her debts and support her children. Abbott and Costello. The comedy duo Abbott and Costello enjoyed great success in the 1940s, raising $85 million in war bonds through their performances. However, they ran into financial difficulties when the IRS disallowed $500,000 in tax exemptions related to the bond drives. After Costello's death in 1959, Abbott's health deteriorated due to epilepsy, and he struggled to find work. The Inland Revenue eventually seized his home to settle unpaid taxes, leaving Abbott with nowhere to turn. He appealed to fans on television for financial help, but died penniless on the 24th of April, 1974, aged 78. Mabel Norman. Mabel Norman was a popular actress and director during the silent film era. Her comedic talents and contributions to the industry made her one of Hollywood's early stars, working alongside legends such as Charlie Chaplin and Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle. Despite her early success, Norman's life was marred by scandal and illness. In 1922, she was linked to the unsolved murder of director William Desmond Taylor, although she was never a suspect. The scandal, combined with her battle with tuberculosis, led to the decline of her career. At the time of her death on the 23rd of February 1930, aged 37, Norman had little wealth and spent her final days in a sanatorium. Though not impoverished, her financial comfort had evaporated, and her legacy serves as a reminder of the fleeting nature of fame. John Garfield. A pioneer of method acting in American cinema, John Garfield became famous for his powerful performances in films such as The Postman Always Rings Twice, 1946. But his career was derailed by the political climate of the 1950s, when he was blacklisted from Hollywood during the Red Scare. Garfield's refusal to cooperate with the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC, led to the loss of acting opportunities, and the stress of this professional exile took a toll on his health. Financial difficulties followed, and by the time of his death on the 21st of May, 1952, at the age of 39, Garfield was struggling. Although he was not destitute at the time of his death, the combination of financial strain and personal turmoil had depleted much of his fortune. These stories of Hollywood's brightest stars show us that fame and fortune don't always bring lasting security. Despite their incredible talent, many faced personal struggle and financial ruin later in life. Their legacies live on, but their challenges remind us that even the most celebrated can be vulnerable. If you found this enlightening, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. See you in the next video.